The Jamaica ADR Society, at the beginning of our online journey, committed to sharing with you the history of alternative dispute resolution in Jamaica. On today's episode, we're graced by the presence of a true champion of neutrality. She has been awarded the Order of Distinction with the rank of Commander Class for her contribution to nation building, especially her unwavering commitment to dispute resolution. In that very year, she pioneered the effort leading to His Excellency, the Governor General, declaring 2004 the National Year of Dispute Resolution. She has written several publications committed to justice reform and conflict resolution. These include the ADR User Guide, The Challenge of Democracy, We Want Justice, Getting to the Goal of Justice for All, Criminal Justice, Ways to Overcome Crime, Regional Conflict Management Initiative. She has committed extensive leadership in the development of the very well-known Peace Management Initiative through the Ministry of National Security, a founding member and a Chief Executive Officer of the Dispute Resolution Foundation in Jamaica from its inception in 1994 through to 2013. She is a leading alternative dispute resolution practitioner in the Commonwealth Caribbean, developing a business and work model based on collaboration with state actors, civil society, international development partners, private sector, and citizens. An attorney at law admitted not only as solicitor in England and Wales, but also called to the Jamaican bar from as early as the 1980s, holding as well a postgraduate certificate of legal education. She has extensive ADR training in mediation, arbitration, restorative justice from universities across North America and from the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators out of the United Kingdom. Please help me in extending the warmest welcome to the incomparable, the Honorable DONNA Parchment Brown, the region's first Political Ombudswoman. We are so eager to better understand. We want to sit at the foot of the stalwarts, the gatekeepers. It's kind of like a Greek philosophy with Socrates and Plato. But that's we're crying out for that bit of engagement. We want to know so that the gap can be bridged. Okay. Because we see there are those persons who just the general practice around mediation, around ADR itself, they're just ignorant too.
That's true. You know, there are sort of like two stages, how it came about, and then who were the people who did the establishment part. There's almost like a two-tiered situation.
Right, because there would be what led to.
Right.
There would be less concretized.
So you know, yes, exactly. Because what happened is that the Jamaican Bar Association hosted Capital University Law and Graduate Center project. And the person who was the staff person was Karen Gentles, but the project coordinator was Masana D'Souza. And it so happened that I had become secretary of the General Legal Council, and we were sharing a space with the Jamaican Bar Association. And they invited me to participate in the activities around this Capital University project. So Capital University in Columbus, Ohio, actually got a grant to do some ADR programs in the Americas. We were one of three. I think one was in Venezuela, and I can't remember where the other one was. But the one in Jamaica is the only one that developed out of their initial investment in the project. So we were fortunate that Star Huffman Mayer and her husband Charles Mayer actually came and lived in Jamaica for about 2 years. to work with Masana during the life of the project and the Bar Association. And that's a period in which we did a lot of training, policy document development, sensitization, and so on. And we were really blessed to have had some particular people, Scott Dewhurst, who was the co-director of the Center for Dispute Resolution at Capitol, who sadly passed away last year. We had Roberta Mitchell, amazing professor. And then a much younger person in their team, Terry Wheeler, who has really been the standout person, even becoming later on president of the Association for Conflict Resolution, which was a global entity for mediation and other ADR practices. So we had a very strong start, and we were also supported at the level of government at the time by Honorable Carl Rattray, and later on by Ozzie Harding and Katie Knight. They were like the people who gave us a lot of initial support. So when their grant ran out after we had done all the foundational work, we asked they got us a grant from USAID. My memory serves me right, it was a $200,000 grant for about 3 years. And when the USAID grant ran out, the government of Jamaica, through the Ministry of Justice, I think it was at the time, decided to give us the grant funding through United Way to now convert from an American project into a Jamaican program. So it is around that time that we were incorporated as the Dispute Resolution Foundation in 2004, because from, is it 2004, 1994?
Yes, 2004 was the 10th year.
So 1994. So that means I'm losing track. I'm sorry, I'm losing the dates. Yes, 1994, we were incorporated. And because before that, we had been the Mediation Council of Jamaica, which was an unincorporated body hosted by the Jamaican Bar Association. So I would say our parenting, the Bar Association is a key part of the existence and the work and development of mediation and the improvement of arbitration in Jamaica. And so having, so that, like, those were the two first phases. The phase with the external partners and the phase when it became Jamaicanized and legally structured. And when we were also getting the support of United Way of Jamaica and actually occupying their office. We were at the JN building on downtown, and we had a small office that we were occupying. Now, change comes by strange and beautiful means. So our beloved retired Chief Justice Lensley Wolf was so important to that change, because when the gun court was being relocated from Camp Road, he basically said, he was our patron, he said, get your things ready to go up on the truck. Up on the truck, and we moved up to Camp Road. And that completely changed what we were able to do. We were no longer in a one office and a foyer and a shared office. We're now in a building where we could have multiple mediation rooms, training rooms, offices. We could do projects. We were able to just completely explode into a significant entrepreneurial justice development organization. Yeah, so that was great. But it's important also to remember that even in our formation, we were very conscious of a sort of national objective, both in the area of justice and in the area of development. So if you look at the original signatories to our Articles of Incorporation, you have Chief Justice Zaka, you have the Honorable Carl Rattray, and they were both, of course, in judiciary at the time. We had Sonia Jones, who was the secretary of the Jamaican Bar Association. We had Avis Enriquez, United Way of Jamaica. We had Novar MacDonald representing the private sector, who later became chairman. You had myself, just somehow busybody that got mixed into the naming.
The right crowd.
Very importantly, we had Steadley Webster, and I mentioned Steadley last, but it is because of Steadley Webster that we have Dispute Resolution Foundation, and the development of ADR in Jamaica took place at that time. It so happened that Steadley Webster was a businessman, and he and his wife went up to Capital University to settle their son into university. And they came back to Jamaica and said to a variety of people, justices of the peace, various people, this thing is interesting, what do you think? And by his effort and energy, he was able to get the Bar Association, different private sector groups, church organizations, and individuals engaged. And a lot of people trained, including, you mentioned Alun before, people like James Forbes, myself, Pauline Finlay. We had an array of people, and I can, or the DRF can definitely provide a list of names of the original board members, because they're drawn across the society, drawn from the Bar Association, and people like Roy Anderson, Chairman, Mr. Justice Roy Anderson, retired, Chairman of the fundraising committee, and so on. So there are many names, and I'm a believer in calling the names of people so we can, sometimes it turns out somebody was working in it, it was your uncle or your cousin, and you may have felt some distance from the organization until you hear who was there, and you're like, what? But I know that person, or like that person.
So often, because especially here in our little bubble, everybody is just interconnected, and this one knows that one.
Absolutely.
You have served on several oversight bodies.
Yes.
But if we could briefly, when you served as director with the Justice Reform Implementation Unit in the Ministry of Justice,
that was really maybe the what I've said about my life and my work is that I've fallen into many happy accidents, and I've tried to do my best while in that space, because I do believe you should bloom where you're planted, and that everything we do shall blossom at its time and bear fruit at its season. And you don't necessarily know, and you can't predict the season, but you just have to do what you think is right. So we were fortunate to have created a relationship with the Ministry of Justice, a long time ago. And a lot of the underground discussions about developing different ideas, the DRF was very much engaged in the modernization of justice. And one of the things, there was a big debate going on in Jamaica about the death penalty many years ago. And there was a sense that if you did or said anything about the justice system, it was because you're either pro or con the CCJ and the death penalty. So it was difficult sometimes for policymakers to even look at justice review. But we felt very, very strongly that a review of the justice system would be beneficial to the public and to the system of justice itself. And I'm sure there are many other persons who are of that view. So the Ministry of Justice came up with a program where, following what had happened in the United Kingdom, they had done a review, and Canada had done a review, and they had come out with some principles that would guide the justice system in their countries. And we looked to that and came up with this program. And for 1 year, the Ministry of Justice facilitated an engagement of hundreds of stakeholders across Jamaica, and involving every sector you can think of, and consultants and so on. And they came up with a Jamaica Justice System Task Force report, which was somewhat facilitated by the, I think, Canadian Bar Association and funded by the government of Canada. And yes, it was the CEDA aspect. The names have changed over the years. I'm not sure what it's called now. The development aspect went on to support the development of that task force report. and then the development of a series of activities to be conducted that would be funded under the JUST, J-U-S-T. And the JUST now was being serviced by the Ministry of Justice through something called the what is the name of it? You just told me the name. Justice Reform Implementation.
Justice Reform Implementation Unit. Mm-hmm.
And I had a privilege to be, I think, the second or third director of the Justice Reform Implementation Unit. So I was very happy because it meant that a lot of things that I had been engaged in before, that some of which had been somewhat stalled, we could really now put a lot of energy into. So we recruited a team, a very good team of colleagues in the department, and we set forth to do work in the court system, in the agencies within the Ministry of Justice, and within the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions and Dispute Resolution Foundation. And after I left the Ministry of Justice, I am aware that they have gone on to the social component, as well as the fuller engagement of the Bar Association and other entities.
Join us next week for part 2 in the 3-part airing of our look back at the early days in the establishment of alternative dispute resolution and the justice reform bodies in Jamaica. Thank you for watching.